Hey, and welcome to the Outdoor Quest TV Zoomcast. And today we not only have a very long-time friend, but a very special friend, and that's Glenda Groat. And Glenda, we go back a long time, don't we? I think, if I'm not mistaken, I was the first hunter that you ever guided.
Yes. Yes.
And that was
Way many years ago.
Yeah, so that was back up in the Yukon. So you're running your own outfit now. You've got Cannell Outfitters up in the Northwest Territories, but back then you were just a freckle-faced little kid that went from being a wrangler to a guide. We were hunting with the Watsons, and
Yeah.
I'll give a little bit of history on the Watsons and me. I've been on many hunts with the Watsons, and they've all been great hunts. But typically, what happens is when I get there, they'll say, "This is your wrangler. Oh, and by the way, this is their first guide license too." And sometimes it works out great, and sometimes it's a little bit more an exercise in patience. But I got to say, from that first day you and I went out, I really saw there was going to be something special in you, and obviously that's been the case.
Aw, thanks, TJ. Here I was like, I don't know what he remembers from that hunt because it was definitely that one was pretty challenging.
Well, we were doing a horseback moose hunt, and the weather was just brutal. We had snow after snow after snow every day. And I remember riding off a couple days, and I remember getting off my horse at one point, and I took about 3 steps, and all of a sudden I fell in a big sinkhole and sunk about 6 feet into it, and was really glad my horse didn't go into that.
Yeah, I have pictures and remember the drifts that we were like breaking through, like chest deep drifts so that our horses could go through to go moose hunting.
It was really amazing, and I'm glad that I got to experience that being your first hunter, and I'm also glad that you went on to do a lot more of what you're obviously you loved at that time. I remember on that hunt you had a brand new birch bark moose horn that one of the native guides had made for you there, and you were so proud of that, and you used it very well, if I recall.
I still am. I have that birch bark moose call still hanging in my house as a decoration that he made me.
Uh,
But
that was
yeah,
That was so cool. And we never got a moose on that hunt. We just finally got snowed out. We ended up, there was a couple sheep hunters in camp with us. Actually, my good buddy Tom Foss and Tom Hoffman were both in camp with us. And
yeah,
it was snowed every day. And we were like, we're never going to get out of here. So we ended up flying out about halfway through the hunt. And you guys had to trail the horses out, didn't you?
yeah. We had to trail the horses out, but the trail out wasn't that bad because it was going to lower elevation than where we were. So as we trailed out, there was less and less snow. But yeah, leaving camp, we had to walk up and down the airstrip to pack it down so that the plane could even land there, if I remember right.
It was just another adventure with the Watsons for sure. But so we're kind of at the end of June here now, and you probably shouldn't be home right now, should you?
No, typically I would be leaving in a week to go north to the Northwest Territories. But yeah, the border is closed for our first couple hunts. So we had to cancel those first couple hunts this year.
So are you getting any kind of word at all? What might be happening? What might not happen?
Oh, it's like everything else in this pandemic. It's really like day by day and stuff is changing. It's hard to like know what to expect. Um, of course we're hopeful. Like I want to operate. I want to go hunting. We don't want to stay home, right? And so we're trying to hold on like as long as possible before canceling any further in hopes that we are allowed to go ahead. But, you know, there's definitely days where I'm doubting myself that we will be able to go. My guides are like, Glenda, you're being your overly optimistic self. And I'm like, I'll take that as a compliment, I guess. But yeah, we're trying to stay optimistic about it.
So you've got a couple things going against you in the Northwest Territories. I mean, first thing, the federal border's closed, which has got everybody in Canada closed down for having out of country hunters right now. But the NWT border is really locked down. I mean, not even non-Canadians can't go in there right now, or Canadians can't even go in there right now.
Yeah, so as of June 12th, they did change that, except you have to quarantine in either Hay River, Fort Smith, Yellowknife or a Nuvik for 14 days before you can go about and do stuff, which doesn't work. It changes a 10-day hunt into a month-long adventure in the Northwest Territories. And 2 weeks of that is stuck in a, hotel room in town. So that doesn't work either.
So you can't even fly in to open up your camps or anything like that. So you've got a lot of work ahead of you once you could get in there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I could probably sneak in without anybody catching me if I had to, but we haven't resorted to that yet.
So how many hunters would you have coming this year?
Typically we have about 38, 40 hunters coming in a
Wow.
year.
And how long does your
Yeah,
season go?
it runs through till the end of September. And by the end of September, it is starting to get a little bit wintry up there. So we
Yeah.
pull out around the 28th.
So your first hunt was scheduled for July 15th, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got, what, a 2.5 month season there, and who knows when it's going to open. That's got to be so stressful right now.
I think I took some anti-stress courses a while back that are really paying off right now. Because we can only do what we can do, right? Like
Yeah.
there's times where you like get at it and work hard and do whatever it takes to make it happen. And kind of right now, everybody's sitting here in limbo, not really being able to do a whole lot to make anything happen. We're at the mercy of whatever's going on here.
Well, I think that's probably the most difficult. I think most of us who are in business for ourselves and things like that are a little bit A-type personality, and we're kind of used to being in control. And right now, every element of control has been taken away from us, and there's no way to get it back.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So you're a woman in an industry that's pretty dominated by men. There's no getting around that. I mean, women are starting to make more of a push, and me for one, I'm really happy to see that. But what are some of the challenges you've faced along the way?
That's always a question that comes up, and it's one that's really, really hard for me to answer, because I have always just thought of myself as one of the guys. And, sometimes I probably told a joke or two that was, from one of the guys' perspectives that people didn't get. And they're kind of like, oh. But yeah, there's some challenges. Like when I had kids, it's different being the mom versus being the husband, leaving for a little while and stuff like that in order to keep going and keep doing these things that I love. But yeah, as for being a woman, I think any young guide or young person getting into the industry is going to experience a lot of the same challenges, no matter whether you are a guy or a girl.
So probably one of the extra challenges I remember you having was you were pregnant on a backpack hunt one time. So.
This is true. I went out for my guiding season, and I just I had no clue I was pregnant. And I guided the 3 months, and I came out of the bush, and that year was my wedding. And I showed up at my wedding. Me and my husband met on the Alaska Highway. I was coming down from my guiding season, and he drove up halfway to meet me in the mountains to get married. And I showed up at Liard Hot Springs with a pregnancy test, and he's like, what's this for? I'm like, well, But towards the end of the season, I started to get a clue that I was pregnant. I thought there was something wrong. Partway through, it was like the 4th sheep hunt of the year, and I just couldn't breathe, like climbing the mountains. I was like, I'm so out of breath still. Like, I need to go to the doctor when I go get home. Like, why am I should be in shape by now. And then I figured out why I couldn't breathe. Yeah. So that's like guiding backpack moose hunts at 4 months pregnant was definitely interesting.
So take us through your career a little bit. I mean, I know I met you, when you were working for the Watsons way back when, and you kind of, I think, started as most mountain guides do, as a wrangler. And how did you progress from there?
Yeah, I started as a cook actually, and they couldn't keep me in the kitchen, or maybe they thought I was a poor cook. I don't know. So they didn't keep me in the kitchen, one or the other. But I liked being outside, and I liked going hunting with the guys. So that changed into wrangling and, I don't know, trailing horses all over the country in the Yukon, and then transitioned into a guide when they needed somebody. And yeah, that's where my passion is. I still like cooking, but getting out there on the mountain and sheep hunting is where my heart is for sure. And then go ahead.
I was going to say, so where have you guided and where did your guiding take you?
I started out in the Yukon, and then I left the Yukon and went over to the Northwest Territories, where I guided for Stan Stevens for 5 years over there. I always forget, I lose track of time. And then my last year at Stan's was the year I was pregnant. And so, of course, having a baby the next year, I couldn't go for a full season. But my good friend Clint Collins, he needed a guide last minute. And I was like, okay, yes, I need to go to the mountains last minute too. So that worked out perfect. And I went for him for a couple years in the Yukon there. I always guided bears in BC here closer to home and did that. And yeah, now here I am back in the Northwest Territories.
So you've been running Canal Outfitters. This is your 3rd season now?
This is my 4th season.
4th season now, okay. And how's that been going?
It's amazing. It's so good. That transition period of like when I had kids was definitely like a really difficult time for me, because guiding was my life. That was who I was. And then, having to choose between your kids being at home and going guiding, it was like 2 separate worlds. And so when this opportunity like came about, and I like hopped on it in a second, so that my kids and my husband can come along and we can all be together in the mountains and instill the passion that I have for the mountains and guiding and hunting in them as they grow up too. So it's being able to have the whole family there, and take my dad comes out and helps, my mom comes out and helps, that whole thing. It's good, and it's definitely different. Yeah, I always need to have a little break, go back to guiding and take some of the stress off instead of always being the leader of the group.
So you're pretty fortunate to kind of find that balance where you could include your family in your career. Because I think, to be an outfitter, a guide that's going to be away from their home for 2.5 or 3 months at a time, I mean, that would be incredibly challenging, especially with younger children.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard no matter what, like being away, but that I say it was divine timing, that it fell into my lap kind of. And I consider myself very blessed and lucky that happened, so that it could all go together.
Well, I remember the first year when you took over at Canal, there was a lot of people saying, there's no way she can make it. There's no way she can do it. And I'm sure you heard a lot of that too. And I just kind of laughed, because I mean, I remember you as that freckle-faced little kid out, plowing through snowbanks trying to find moose. And I was like, there's anyone that can do it. It's Glenda. So, and I mean, you had a great first season, didn't you?
Yeah, we had a amazing first season, as good as you could ask for. It was, I remember all the naysayers, or I didn't pay attention to the naysayers, obviously, because I'm just stubborn enough that I was like, okay, this is going to happen. And, there's no doubt in my mind, we're not going there. So we're only thinking of the good things.
Yeah.
But it was really good. We took 21 sheep hunters and took 22 sheep on our first year. The 22nd was a caribou hunter came on a caribou hunt and happened to see a sheep that he had a sheep tag in his pocket for. So he took that too. So yeah, we had a very successful first season, which was important to me. I had a really great group of guides with me. That makes all the difference, right? Having a good team of people that work together to get it through those times.
Well, I remember talking to you at Sheep Show that first year, and it was pretty uncertain. You didn't get a lot of help from the previous outfitter, and you were just kind of thrown into this all on your own. And everybody's going, "Who is this Glenda? Do you know this Glenda Groat?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I do actually." So.
Yeah, there's two ways to think of it. You could feel sorry for yourself that you didn't get help from the previous outfitter, or it was probably a blessing in disguise, like having to go out and learn everything for yourself instead of depend on somebody else, and somebody else's ways. So I had hunted in a lot of areas before where you just go out and you start looking around and start hunting. So that part wasn't intimidating for me. I'm like, I know how to hunt sheep, and we've all been to those places where you go into a new area and you just start hunting like you would any other place, right? So
It's pretty amazing. Like I often have people ask me, well, what do you think about going to an area like the first year at Outfitters had it? I'm going, that is the year you want to go, because they're exploring. They've spent the whole summer out there. They're keen, they're eager, and they're checking out places that the previous outfitters haven't. Because, what happens, I think, with previous outfitters is they just get comfortable hunting where they were hunting, and, they kill the sheep and everything kind of goes along smoothly. And I know quite a few outfitters who, there was probably 20% of their area was being hunted, and then they took it over and started hunting 100% of it. And all of a sudden, there was rams coming out of there that they hadn't seen in 20 or 30 years.
yeah, I definitely agree. I've seen it happen in other areas all the time. And when you didn't know where the other people were hunting, like, of course, you're probably going to be hunting new areas, right? So, yeah, it was good.
So we're seeing a lot of young outfitters nowadays, taking over pretty big areas, pretty high dollar areas. And there's got to be a lot of stress comes with that, I'm guessing.
Yes. Remember, like, earlier when I was saying those like stress relief courses that I was taking? Yeah, that was my first year.
Yeah.
There was definitely some high blood pressure moments where, like, that spring, I think there was a few things that every time they got mentioned, my face would go red and I would be like, oh, with stress. But it's everybody has to do it, right? Like, that was one of the things when I did take over, is I said, there's going to be, you guys are going to see a lot more of this. Like, lots of the older outfitters are getting to that point where they are looking at retiring or, doing something different. And even since I took over, there's been so many change of hands into new, younger outfitters stepping in. And I think the young guys are all doing an amazing job.
It's got to be a big transition, though, going from, being a guide kind of making $200 a day, worrying about how you're going to pay for your mortgage, to all of a sudden you're dealing with, multi-million-dollar areas. And how do you make that transition, not so much as a guide, but as a business person?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that one. I still am not, there's times where I look at myself and I'm like, oh, I should be more business minded on a few things, but it's a learning experience for sure. I am so thankful that I worked for good outfitters, and I worked for quite a few outfitters before I took on this adventure, because I feel like I learned so much from the outfitters that I worked for, that prepared me for being here doing this now.
Well, I think that's a good point there is, and I think you're pretty smart to have done that, because I think a lot of guides or wranglers just go through life never worrying about, what's past the wall tent or what's past the mountains kind of thing. But if you do want to move on in this career, you got to really look seriously at the business side. And like you said, you've worked for some of the best, and, just to kind of absorb a bit of knowledge from them on that business side, which is probably the most boring side in the world, when you're out guiding and wanting to do that. But, you got to be smart enough to realize that, that is the end game for a lot of people.
Yeah.
You're still overwhelmed by it all, aren't you?
I'm like, I'm still learning a lot. Yeah. And I have really good friends in the outfitting that I can call on and be like, walk me through this. What would you do? Or, advice in certain situations, because they've been there and they have done it. And I think if I didn't have those like amazing people behind me as friends, it would be a lot more difficult job than, what it is.
Oh yeah, I mean, having that support network, I don't care what business you're in, is huge. And I think, you've came through that support network, working hard, doing well for the people you've worked with, and they've come to respect you for that. And I think at the end of that, they are willing to offer help.
Yes. And there was people who I hadn't even worked for that did, spoke up for me and helped me out through it, and are still, a support network for me. And I appreciate those people so much. And, I would do anything for them in return that I could, if I had advice for those people who are always giving me advice, something I could do for them to return all that kindness that they showed for me.
Well, and I mean, I think where you can return it is to the people coming up, beneath you too, like those younger guides nowadays out there. And I guess I'll put you on the spot here. Like, what kind of advice do you offer to those 18 and 19-year-old guys and gals that are out there doing their first wrangling jobs, maybe getting their first guide license?
Work hard. That is the biggest thing, is work hard and do not take anything for granted, and know, like, there's no entitlement when you're guiding. Like, there's no way you can be entitled. It is hard work, and yeah, you just do what it takes
Yeah.
to get it done.
I'm sure you've seen a lot more guides come and go than you've seen come and stay. I mean, I think it's one of those occupations I think that people look at and feel like, oh, this has got to be the best job in the world. And then, like you say, they find out it is a lot of hard work.
Yeah, mostly the wrangling, or like younger ones that come in and they'll spend maybe 1 year, and then they'll be gone, and they'll be gone from, you'll never hear of them again. And I have younger people come and work for me now, and I'm like really pushed that, like, this is where I started too,
Mhm.
like, I didn't start out just walking into a guiding career. I started out low on the totem pole and worked my way up until the outfitter trusted me enough to throw me TJ and a guide's
Uh,
license to go out, right? But no, it's like, it's hard work, and you have to pay your dues in the lower position. And, even now as the outfitter, I have the job of the young people that come up, in our camp now, is like cleaning out houses, like skinning wolves that somebody didn't have time to skin, or, like the crappy jobs
mhm.
around camp. And I actually call the job position the outfitter in training, because that is, how I kind of feel like in outfitting, you can't be too proud to go back to doing those, you know, cleaning the toilet or making sure this other stuff that isn't so glorious, like being a guide, is, right? So it's, you start out at the low stuff and then work your way up. And the harder you work at your stuff, no matter what job you're given, you it shows the outfitter that you do have the drive, and they'll trust you with their clients, right? If you don't put the effort in those little jobs, then why would you put the effort in, you know, on the tough rainy days, and the foggy days that you couldn't get out of your tent for half of it? If you aren't going to put the effort in camp, then you know what's to say that you're going to put the effort in out there on the mountain, right?
No, absolutely, and I think that's a good way to put it. They are in training, and if that's a career they want to seek, they do have to do every job. And I'm sure still there's days you as the the outfitter at the top of the food chain are still cleaning the odd toilet and things like that,
Oh
just
yeah.
because it has to get done, right?
That's why it's called the outfitter in training, because me and that person are working on those jobs together. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're still finding a bit of a balance though between being the outfitter and still getting out guiding a little bit.
Yes. Yes. I've been lucky to get to do it. Sometimes the crap hits the fan a little bit. um, but yeah, it's hard when you have like a big outfit like this to
Oh,
still
yeah.
get out and get guiding. But I think me going out and guiding for a little bit, it keeps me more relaxed than the uptight outfitter just pacing around at camp making sure everybody's doing their work. So
Yeah.
the guides might be happy to get rid of me sometimes and send me
Yeah.
out guiding, but No, it's good, and I like to take the bow hunters, so it gives my guides a break.
Okay.
They always are like, we like to take bow hunters, but sometimes they get tired of it. So
Yeah.
I'll always take a bow hunter when I go.
Yeah. So, just I guess even when you're out guiding though, you still have to be the outfitter. And I guess that must be
Yes.
a challenge. Like, sometimes I think as a guide, it's just great to take off for 10 days or 2 weeks and totally unplug and not have to talk to anyone, but you still must have to be finding out what's going on every night, making decisions. And
Yeah, we have a check-in time every night, and even throughout the day, like there's guides contacting you that they might need to move with a helicopter, this or that. And this year, I had Anna Vorsic out on a archery hunt, and it was probably the most challenging one because it was the full 12 days that we went, and everybody was needing stuff. And I felt bad for Anna. I was like, oh, I'm sorry, because your brain is in two
Mhm.
places, right? So sometimes at night you could sit down and visit, or like during the day I have other clients that are needing something, and I'm like, okay, but I'm stalking a sheep right now. So the inReach has changed everything of, all the communication is like right here and instant, right? So I think that's a big thing that's changed, that people expect answers right now. So when I go guiding, the hunter has to be a little bit understanding of
Oh,
me
totally.
having to keep my other outfit and cap on at the same time as guiding.
Yeah, no, totally. And, it's funny. We always ask, have people ask us, boy, when I go hunting there, I want to hunt with the outfitter. And I'm like, you may want to rethink that a bit. Like if you just want to totally get away from it all and forget about everything, because like you say, you have to wear those two hats, and it doesn't matter if you're in the mountains or not, you still have to be looking, and you do the best you can at both jobs, but you do
Yeah.
have to have an understanding client. And, for us, I mean, I do enjoy kind of watching that interaction and everything, but there's times too, and it's just nice to go with a guide who just has to do his check in once a day and say, yep, everything's good here.
Yeah, totally. I had one of my good friends out hunting last year as well too, like in our area. She came up and hunted moose and caribou, and I think I stabbed myself in the leg and had to go get stitches, and then I lost my backpack and my inReach, and it was like, because my mind was in like a million places while you're hunting, and I'm like, well, thank God it was her that was so
Yeah.
understanding. If it was any other hunter, they might have been like, who is this chick? Like, how is she running an outfit when she can't even find her backpack?
But there's got to be something to said for that. Is kind of, you're as much probably a psychologist as you are a business person and guide too. And I think a lot of it is probably just getting the right hunters with the right guides in a lot of cases.
Totally. I actually took psychology in college. It comes in really handy as a psychology major and sociology minor. So it comes in really handy now when choosing which hunters to put with which guides. And if it was booked through a booking agent, it's more of a split second decision when they get there, versus if you've booked the client yourself, you've gotten a pretty good feel for their personality and which one of your guides they'll fit with best before they get there. So
That's something I guess it's probably always on your mind every time when you're at a show talking to a prospective hunter or anything. You got to be thinking about that.
totally. And I think, like lots of hunters, they're like, well, why should I book with you over somebody else in the NWT? And I always tell them, I'm like, any of the areas in the NWT are great areas. Pick the outfitter that you get along the best with,
Mhm.
and that's where you're going to have the best hunt. Because I have so much respect for everybody else in the NWT, and we're all work together. And I think we've all passed each other clients back and forth. And it's if your personality matches the outfitters, they're more likely to match the guide, the style of camp, everything like that. And, we get a lot of young, like go-getter hunters because that matches our personality. So I think our age range of clientele is a lot on the younger side. Like we get every age, but
Mhm.
it's a lot different than when I say guided for Stan Stevens. And he's got all the old boys club, you know, like
Right.
that
Yeah.
they are there and they want to hunt with Stan, right? Because Stan's been around forever and they aren't as willing to maybe take the risk on the young people, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So have you ever had any hunters you said no to that I don't want to hunt with you?
Is that a trick question?
No, not at all.
um as an outfitter,
Yeah.
no.
Not yet.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Is it some,
There's
there's probably some you would like to have.
there's probably no, I shouldn't even say that. There might be one or two that I wouldn't have again,
Yeah.
but
But
yeah.
you know what? That's fair enough in it. And I'll tell you, as an old guy who's been in business himself all his life, at some point, it's more important to not worry about getting fired, but it's firing some of your clients. And you know, it's the mental health game is important to get. And you talked a lot about stress and everything like that. And there comes a point, and you'll probably get there a lot sooner than I did because you're smarter than me. But that you know, you will find clients that you will fire eventually. And I think when you're hunting is such a one-on-one thing, and all of a sudden you're sending a guy out for 10 days alone, you know, one-on-one with a guide, man, I'll tell you, that could be pretty stressful for you, for the guide, for everything else. And there comes a point where you know, I don't think it's worth it just for some people.
Yeah, totally. And I think yeah, we've definitely experienced those clients
Mm-hmm.
and you know, there's different outfits that might fit those clients' personalities
Yeah.
better than what we strive for, right? And it just is, everybody has their niche and some people just aren't for us, right?
Yeah. And that's fair enough. I mean, that's not a knock on you at all. I think that's, you know, that shows some maturity, you know, kind of coming to that realization that it's not all about the money. It's at some point, you know, there's got to be, you know, fun in it. It's got to be good for your mental health. It's got to be good for everything. And it comes down to good clients. So what's your advice to clients? Say somebody shows up at sheep show, you know, they want to do a Dall sheep hunt, but really they don't know where to start.
My advice to clients, I always say, is just don't give up. And you know, like a lot of people are like, oh well, there's this reason that I think maybe I can't do it, or there's this reason that I think maybe I can't do it. And I'm like, well, you're kind of cutting yourself off at the knees, like saying that all these reasons you think you can't do it, like. And I use an example. I had a Mexican client who was over 300 pounds and we were sheep hunting and he got a sheep, but he never gave up. It
Yeah.
may have taken him forever to get up that mountain, but he never gave up and he never complained. And it was slow going, but I use him as the example because if he could do it, anybody can do it. You know, like we've had hunters in their 70s come up and get sheep, and it's a mindset. It is a mental thing. And if you want to say all the reasons that you think you can't do it, you know, get those out of your mind, you know, like think of all the reasons you can do it. And, you know, like don't give up. Don't, you know, cut yourself off before you start. Have a positive attitude and you will be able to do it.
So how do you pick the right outfitter?
Just picking somebody who matches your personality, you know, like if you have a good conversation with them and you get a good feeling from them and you know you leave there smiling afterwards after the conversation, whereas if you kind of like talk to a person and you're I'm not sure, you know, it's probably better that you take the time to think about it than um not, right? Like pick somebody that you get along with.
And you know, there's lots of different styles of Dall sheep hunts too. I think, you know, everybody goes, "Oh, I'm going to go Dall sheep hunting." And my first question is, you know, do you want to do a backpack hunt? Do you want to do a horseback hunt? Do you want to do a helicopter assisted hunt? And I don't think most people have thought that far ahead. And that's right where it all starts, really.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if you hate horses, there's no sense going on a horseback hunt.
No, no. I'm of course biased to the way we are able to hunt in the Northwest Territories because it's so efficient,
Right.
really.
So explain
But
that a little bit, how that hunt works.
because we are allowed to use helicopters in the NWT. So for me, the huge benefit that I feel from being able to helicopter hunt is being able to hunt your entire area. On any given hunt, you don't have to like trail in somewhere with horses and then hunt there for a couple hunts and then trail a little ways and hunt again. It's like we could literally be from one end of our area to the other end of our area in one hunt. In a couple of hours, we could be that drastic of difference. So to me, it makes the helicopter makes it's still hunting no matter what. It's still going to be tough hunts, but it makes it so efficient to be able to get into areas that sometimes would be way more difficult to get into with other means of transportation.
So kind of walk us through a typical hunt. The guy shows up in camp, and how does it go from there? In main camp?
So he shows up in main camp. We usually have a big feast and then send them out with their guide that night, as many as we can out that night with their guide. And
so they'll helicopter into a spike camp at that point?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then from there, they're backpacking. So have their camp, be able to pack it on their back. They don't always have to move camp, but being able to move camp is definitely makes it easier.
Right.
And then they hunt in one area, half their hunt, maybe a little more. And if there's, for some reason, they're not successful, if they haven't seen sheep or they need something, we can go in with the helicopter and pick them up and move them to a new area to hunt a completely different area if that's needed.
And so you're just doing strictly sheep hunts in the early part of the season, and then you do some combo hunts later on?
Our first hunt is strictly sheep, and so we take a few extra hunters on that one that's just sheep, because you have so much more time. And then after that, July 25th, we start, everybody who comes up, I buy them a caribou tag, and if they choose to shoot a caribou on a trophy feed, that's great. And if they don't see anything they like, then that's fine too. We have amazing caribou in the Northwest Territories. So I'm like, guaranteed if somebody doesn't have a tag, they're going to see a 400-inch caribou. So I buy everybody the tag, and then they just have the option. They know what the trophy fee is ahead of time. And if they see something worth that, then they can take it.
Yeah. So, but I mean, still, people are going to do better if they're more physically fit, I would think, as on any backpack hunt. But like you say, you're catering to all levels of physical fitness, but I think getting in shape is still, paramount.
Yeah, it definitely, it's a comfort thing, like getting in shape is, you're going to be more comfortable. You're going to be more comfortable and you're going to be more capable. If you're not in perfect shape or you have a previous injury, is it going to mean you can't do it? No, it's not going to mean you can't do it, but you're going to be a lot more comfortable after the first couple days if you've taken the time to get into shape so you can still bend your legs to walk when you're out hunting.
Right, for sure. And I think that's, important. I think a lot of people, when they hear the helicopter aspect of the hunt, I think a lot of people look at it as probably being easy, and it's definitely not necessarily the case. I mean, we all get lucky every now and then, but it's not the case for sure.
Yeah, I try and make a point of telling all my clients that, because I don't want them to come with any false expectation that it's going to be easy, because it's, because we have a helicopter, we are able to manage our area really well because we have a helicopter, but it doesn't mean that they'll be easy.
Right, for sure. And how many women hunters do you take now every year?
We actually get quite a few women hunters each year, and I like it. And just last year we hired another female guide, and so I don't know, I kind of think it's good that we can cater to them a little bit and have female guide as well. That sometimes women going out for their first time on a hunt feel a little bit intimidated by going out with a guide, like a male guide. And so I remember guiding a lady back many years ago, 10 years ago or so. And it was her husband only let her come up alone because she was coming hunting with me, right? So it was being able to do stuff like that and have women, like take women for the first time out on a mountain hunt. It's a cool experience. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's, and I imagine you do probably get more women hunters just, because you, as an outfitter being a woman, like you say, you do have some women guides. I imagine that plays to your advantage.
Yeah, probably a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. And nothing wrong with that. I mean, we know that women are the fastest growing demographic in hunting right now. And, hopefully once COVID's over and the economy gets rolling, there's going to be some more disposable income. But what would be the average age of the woman that comes hunting with you?
Average age of women. I don't know. I've had women hunters everywhere from in their 20s to, in their 60s,
Oh, well.
mid 60s. So kind of anywhere, that's a big age range.
Yeah, it sure is. Yeah. Like I know we're starting to see a lot more women traveling to hunt, probably from their mid 40s on. I mean, their kids have grown up at that point. Disposable income is, a little bit higher at that point as well. And they want to get out there and, enjoy a lot of the stuff. And, we're starting to see a lot more couples hunting as well, which is, I don't know, I think it's really cool. It's nice to have some fresher faces in the mountains.
Yeah, for sure.
So we're sitting here now, you're just kind of on hold waiting to help. So what do you fill your days with now?
Yoga, gardening, riding horses, raising kids, just regular stuff.
Taking phone calls from hunters going, what's going on? What's going on?
Yeah. All the hunters have been absolutely amazing. Everybody understands the position we're in, and they're very, very compassionate in showing, like it sucks for them. Some of these people have been booked for 3 years and now they can't come this year. But they're very understanding that we can't do anything about it. And I'm so thankful for the clientele that we do have, that they have been so understanding with the phone calls. And, they're always a little bit worried. They're like, oh, am I bugging you? You've probably got a million of these calls. And it's like, no, like, I'm here for you guys, right?
So how are you going to deal with this in the next 2 or 3 years when, all of a sudden you're booked up for those next 2 or 3 years and now you've got this season to try and fit in too?
Yeah, I feel like we were already booked up for the next couple of years. So we're not exactly sure how it will all work at this point, because we aren't exactly sure the full, if this whole season is gone, then we'll definitely have to do a lot of juggling. I still really would like to go up this season if at all possible.
Yeah, that's got to be another big part of the stress, though. It's just like, what does the future hold? I mean, I think we can all pretty much agree that the 21 season is going to happen, but if the 20 season doesn't happen, what happens to all those hunters? And I've been talking to quite a few outfitters about that, and they're just trying to scramble a plan right now. How am I going to fit all those people in? Because, it's not fair to the guy in 21 to move him, but the guys who booked this year, and it's just like, what do you do to make everybody happy?
Yeah, I don't think there is a right answer to make everybody absolutely happy. But yeah, it's definitely goes back to the understanding of the clients of what's going on right now too, to, we're all in it together and working together to get through it, and what we can do to, be a team in this too,
Yeah, and I've heard that from so many outfitters and so many hunters, is that everybody is really working together. I mean, it's not your fault, it's not the hunter's fault, and all you can do is kind of come together and, we'll find a solution somehow. But I think that's the great thing about this hunting community is everybody is typically pretty understanding, and they do ultimately want to work together.
Yeah, it's a family for sure. Like all of us together, it's a family.
Yeah. And I mean, it's funny, like, we met, I don't know how many years ago that was, but it's got to be close to 15 years ago now. And, we keep in touch and everything else. And I think that's been the great thing. And most of my guides that I've hunted with over the years, most of the outfitters, most of the guys I've kept kept in touch with. Most of the people I've met in camp over the years, I've kept in touch with. And it's kind of cool when you travel or when you go to sheep show or whatever, it's just bumping into, like, you know, you can't walk 20 feet without walking into someone, you know.
Yeah. And I think this is where, you know, there's a lot of negatives about social media, but this is where social media helps us, you know, keep up, you know,
Absolutely.
with, we don't see each other all the time, but we still feel like friends, and we still feel like we can keep in contact with each other so easily, through all the social media and internet these days, right?
Yeah, for sure. And especially right in the middle of all this madness now. I don't know what's going to happen, but Glenda, I want to thank you so much for taking. I'd like to say out of your busy day, but if I kept you from yoga, I don't really feel too bad today. So,
Hey, my garden needs weeded.
oh, okay. You want to come do ours too? So, yeah, I want to thank you a lot for taking the time out to talk to us and just sharing a bit of your insight on the industry and kind of what's happening. And I did want to talk to you because we just started the Zoomcast about a couple months ago, and I've just been kind of reaching out to a lot of people that I've had a lot of history with, and a lot of people that I have a lot of respect for in this industry. And I'll tell you what, you're right up there at the top of both those.
Thank you so much, TJ, and thank you for having me.
Okay, well, thanks very much, and maybe we'll chat again soon. And I wish you all the best in getting out there this season, because I know it's probably
Fingers
driving you
crossed.
nuts. Yeah, for sure. Thanks so much, Glenda.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.